If you need to give any gifts this time of year, a thank you gift, a hey, thanks for putting up with my child at school teacher gift, birthday present, or even a just because gift, one of these, or heck, one of each of the 3 sizes, would be a classy, unique idea, and it's inexpensive too. It's a fantastic gift because who doesn't love fall? And don't forget to make one for yourself because they are an easy way to decorate and get all the fall feels going in your home. And you can download this adorable Happy Fall tag for free, which takes this gift option to the next level. So we start with a chain. And however many you chain, that is going to determine the height of your pumpkin. So I'm going to leave myself a bit of a tail. I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to begin chaining. Because I'm making the medium pumpkin, I'm going to chain 32. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now what I'm going to do is work into the second chain from the hook. So the first chain is right here. The second chain is right underneath it, just 2 chains away from where you ended. So I'm going to work into that. And what I'm going to do for the first 2 chains in this row and every row thereafter is do a single crochet in each one. So the second chain from the hook, I'm going to go under and pull up a loop. Now I have 2 loops on, yarn over, pull through. There's 1 single crochet, and now I'm going to do 1 more in the chain next to it. So under the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. So now I have 2 single crochets. I'm going to do I'm going to do 27 half double crochets, and then in the last 2 chains of this row, I'm going to do 2 more single crochets, just like I did at the beginning. But so here's our 2 single crochets. I'm going to now do half double crochets. So yarn over, under the loop, pull up a loop. I have 3 loops on, yarn over, pull through. That's 1 half double crochet. Yarn over, under the loop, pull up another loop. We have 3 on, yarn over, pull through. So I'm going to continue doing this for a total of 27 half double crochets until I get to those last 2 chains in the row. So here are my last 2 chains right here. I'm going to just do single crochets again like at the beginning. So under the loop we got 2 loops on, yarn over, pull through, and then the last one you go under the loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Okay, so we're going to chain 1 and turn the work so that we're looking at the back side. And this is where it gets interesting. Well, not quite. First we have to do our 2 single crochets. So we're going to go underneath both loops, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. That's our first single crochet. Under both loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. So 2 single crochets. Okay, just like the beginning and end of every row, 2 single crochets. So now this is the fun part. So normally what we do is we work under this V, right? We put our hook underneath those 2 loops, or 1 loop if you're counting it together, but you put it underneath that V, right? We would normally go under here like this. So for this pattern, what you're going to do is go underneath this 3rd loop right here. That's underneath our V. So there's the V, we turn it a little bit toward you, and here's this 3rd loop. This is the front 3rd loop. It's facing you. There's actually a back 3rd loop too, but we're just going to completely ignore that for this project. We don't need to worry about that one. So the front 3rd loop, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a half double crochet just like we did for the last row, but you're going to yarn over, and instead of going under the 2 loops, you go underneath this 3rd loop, and you yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through. So just like a regular half double, except you're placing it underneath this third loop instead of under the V. So let's do it again. We'll yarn over. You go underneath that third loop, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on, yarn over, pull through. So see, there's our V. You just turn your work towards you and it's this bar right here. And once you recognize it, it's very easy. Okay, I've come to the end of row 2. I have these 2 stitches left, and these we're going to work just like normal ones. We're going to go underneath the V. It's a little twisted, but you can see it if you turn it. Yarn over, pull up, 2 loops on, yarn over, pull through. So that's our first, and we're going to do 2 single crochets here. I like to do the single crochets for this pumpkin at the beginning and the end because it just leaves a slightly flatter area at the top and bottom of the pumpkin when we sew it. Makes it a little bit easier to close it, and it just leaves this area a little bit flatter, which I like the look of. So now we're at this end. I think I unconsciously chained 1. So I mean, if I take that out, we're just going to chain 1. Turn the work, and you can see now we have this super cool texture from row 2 on the front side of our work. So this is the front side. The back side is going to be pretty flat. Front side of the work here. Now we're going to work our 3rd row. So I bet you can guess what we're going to start with. We're going to start with those 2 single crochets. And now what we want to do is have all of our ridges, all of these pushed forward loops on the front. If we were to work in the front bar of this one, which would be here, it would push our ridges to the back, which will be on the inside of the pumpkin, which you can totally do. It's a different look than this pattern, but that is also a very cool look. What you'd end up with is 1 ridge and then kind of a flat area, and then another ridge, another flat area. This pattern though, we want to put all kinds of ridges on the front of the pumpkin. So what we want to do is push all the ridges forward. So we can't work in this front loop. You could work in this back loop, but there's an easier way. I think that it's easier than working in that loop, and that's this. We're going to work in the back loop only. So we have our 2 stitches here, we're all V here, 1 stitch, 2 loops right here, right? The V, and normally we would go underneath both, right? And we would put our stitch here underneath both of those loops. But what we're going to do instead, we're going to yarn over and just work in the back loop. So you go underneath that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you have 3 on, yarn over, pull through. Because you're leaving the front loop here on the front, the back loop, working in the back loop is going to push it forward toward you, and you'll end up with another ridge on this front side. So let's do it again. Here's the top. So you can see here's our front loop right there, and the back loop is farther away from you. So we're gonna yarn over, go under this back loop. Whoop, I'm missing it. Yarn over, pull up, 3 loops on, yarn over, and pull through. So we're just gonna do that, working in the back loop only for row 3. Let's work 2 single crochets right here at the end. Easy peasy. And now you chain 1 and turn. Now all you have to do is continue this repeat, row 2 and then 3 and then 2 and then 3 and then 2 and then 3 until you get to enough rows to be able to close your pumpkin. For the medium pumpkin, that would be 42 rows. We're going to take the right sides, the side with all the texture, or front. That's the right side. This is the back side, the wrong side of our fabric. This is the right side. So we're going to put rights to rights. We're going to fold it in half with those rights together and line up the ends. And then I'm going to take a piece of yarn, probably 2.5 yards long, and I'm going to make a slip knot. And I am going to insert my hook through underneath this stitch here, and then I'm going to line it up with This is actually the starting chain, your starting chain at the beginning. So it doesn't look like the two V's, but it is what remains of your starting chain. And I'm going to grab my slip knot, tighten it up a little bit, pull it through. Whoops, try not to split your yarn because that's not cool. And then you're going to just do like a slip stitch right there. And now we're just going to go under the stitch just like we would normally do here, and then under this chain over here and slip stitch through them both just like that. And we're going to work our way down the side, attaching the last row that we did with the first row that we did. Okay, so I've slip stitched all the way down the sides. You can pull this up and out, finish it off. So this is the inside of your pumpkin. You have this ridge now, and we're going to flip it right side out. And here's your pumpkin tube, and our seam is right here. It is indented a bit, but we're just going to make that, I want to make that one of my ridges. So or if you push it out a little like this, it's camouflaged. You're not going to really be able to even tell where you seamed it closed. This is the same piece we just used to seam up the side, and you're going to just run it around. I'm going to come in toward myself, I guess actually out, and then I just am going under. I try to go under both like loops. It makes it a little more secure, and you're just basically weaving in and out and in and out of the stitches. And after I've done 4 or 5, I tend to pull through, and you just keep going around the whole edge of what will be the bottom of your pumpkin. Now when you get back to where you started, what you're going to want to do is gather it all. So you just pull on that string, not too hard. You can break it. Let me tell you how I know that. And pull a little bit more, and like I said, you do not want to break your string. So here's what I do toward the end here. I'm going to just go under a couple of these stitches. I'm going to knot it so that it doesn't open up at all from where I've tightened it. So there's my knot there. There is a bit of an opening still. I'll go from one side to the other, like I'm going across from this right side to the left side, and then I'm going to pull that through, and that pretty much closed it right there. So I might do another one like that, turn it around and do another from the right to the left just to make sure. And you can knot it. So I left a loop here. I've pulled it through, but I left a little bit of a loop. I'm going to knot it right there. And now you have the bottom closed. So now I have it all tucked in, and we just have one end closed. So now is the time to stuff the pumpkin. So I'm using Poly-Fil, this big old bag of Poly-Fil polyester stuff. And I'm just going to stuff my pumpkin until it's pretty full. I mean, it does stretch a little, but you don't want to stretch it too much because then you'll see your Poly-Fil through the stitches. So it's kind of a fine line. You know, a little squishing, little squeezing, stuff it, stuff it, stuff it. And we're just going to gather this end just like we did the other. You don't have to worry about tying it off because we're going to knot it when we get around the other end. Okay, so you pull those 2 strings most of the way closed, not all the way. It's going to open up a little bit. That's okay. We're going to tighten it later. But right now I want to insert what I'm going to use for the stem. So you have, well, what I use are a couple different options. There's a cinnamon stick. In this case, that is too small a stick for my little pumpkin. I want something bigger. So I recommend random stick. Honestly, I went out into my backyard and I cut this off from one of our bushes. I used I think it's called a lopper. It's like a pruning shears, but it's heavy duty. And I cut these, and my husband thinks I'm a little crazy, but it totally works. So we're going to go with it. See, it's right about the right size. I think I'm gonna stick it in, kind of test it out, see where I like it. And then what I'm gonna do is I am going to use some hot glue. And if you don't have one of these hot glue stands, oh man, you need one in your life, trust me. I'm gonna put a little bit of hot glue out of the bottom here. And then I am going to, while it's still warm, stick it right here in the middle with the fiber fill, because that'll kind of hold it in place for a minute. There we go. A little bit of hot glue there. And now what I'm going to do is tighten this back up a little bit. See, it tightens pretty tight around it. And now what I'm going to try to do is tie these two strings as I tighten it, right? Like right after, so it holds it in place. So I'm going to tighten, 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 and kind of hold those, and then tighten this up. Now, there we go. So it's pretty tight. I'm gonna knot that so it doesn't loosen on me. Okay, so there is a little bit of gap still here. We're gonna close that later. Right now, what I want to do, my next step, I think leaving that gap there will make this a little bit easier. So what I'm gonna do is take my remaining long piece of yarn, which has a really frayed end. I'm going to stick it into my yarn needle. And now I'm going to make my sections of my pumpkin. I was just looking for my seam, but I can't even see it. Isn't that awesome? I can't even see the seam. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to find where I want a seam to be, and I'm going to pull it down to the bottom. You're going to want to tighten. And then down here, kind of in the center, I'm going to stick that needle in. Now you kind of have to poke it up here. I'm aiming for the middle, sort of right next to my stick. That's why I left it open there. And I'm going to pull it up. Now, this is my extra string, which I should get out of the way. You pull this through and tighten a little bit, and look at that. I'm going to go directly across from that. Yep, this is my long one. Right across from that, right down the side again. And I'm gonna go up through the middle again. I did wanna say that when I made the largest pumpkin, it is tall enough that I couldn't get my needle through the center of the pumpkin without some difficulty. So what I did to section that off, to section off the large pumpkin, was I ran my needle underneath some stitches, and then I would go down the side, and then I just ran my needle under some stitches down here and then repeated. But I didn't actually go all the way up through the pumpkin because my needle got lost. Okay, I am going to stop there. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 segments. You could go a 9th. I kind of like the way it looks as is, so I'm gonna stop there. Totally up to you. There is no set way to do that, but I'm gonna take the other end that I left and I'm going to tie it together. And there's just still a tiny little gap next to my pumpkin stem, so I'm just going to squeeze some hot glue in right there where I don't want to see it, and I'm just gonna squeeze my pumpkin closed and wait for a moment. Now it's time to decorate a little bit. One of my favorite things to do is use this stuff. It's called green grapevine wire. Take a pencil or a marker. In this case, I'm gonna use a marker because I want my loops to be a little bit bigger. If you use a pencil, the loops are a little smaller, and you can pull them apart. I'm just starting wide, so I'm curling the end of it around my marker like that, and then I'm just gonna wrap. Okay, so I went and got some wire cutters. You just snip that like that, and I finished wrapping it, and then you just pull it out. Now, this is kind of your curlicue, and I stretch it out a bit like that. And I'm gonna kind of open up this middle section so it's a little wider. And then I wrap it around my stem. And then all that's left to do is play with your wire until it looks how you want it. So you can have it angled down, angled up, and you kind of crazy. You can leave it tighter, looser, whatever you want. And voila, there it is, unless you want to add some of the raffia stuff, which, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this and the raffia. Oh gosh, this stuff makes such a mess, right? Like, who's with me? It's so messy. It looks cool, but ugh, what a mess. There we go. So the room is covered in this stuff. Totally covered. Probably never gonna get rid of it, but totally. Oh, I got a random one over here. That's too long. We don't want that. Let's cut that off. Okay. Oh my gosh, look how adorable it is. There it is. Is that not the cutest rustic looking pumpkin? And I think I'm gonna glue this down too to make sure that stays in place. And then it's done. Isn't that awesome? Use the link in the description down below to subscribe and get the happy fall gift tags to attach to your beautiful rustic pumpkin. Happy crafting!